From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for Open Line. I'm Carrie Sharp, and I hope that you will enjoy the show and be part of it as well. We're going to go ahead and put the number up on the screen, but I will tell you what we're talking about tonight. Chris Sanders is my guest from the Tennessee Equality Project, and we're going to be talking about several bills that are in front of lawmakers right now that will affect what happens in our state. And one in particular that we want to talk about is a bill that would force student athletes, so we are again talking about students here, to play sports in accordance with the gender of their birth. And Chris is going to tell us more about why the Tennessee Equality Project and many others feel like this is very discriminatory. Again, this is Open Line. Your opinions, your calls are invited tonight. 615-737+ is the number right there on the bottom of the screen. Chris, thank you for being with us again tonight.
Well, thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I know you're especially busy right now with the legislative session in session.
Yes.
And let's talk about this bill that I just mentioned, this one that the governor commented on about a week or so ago, and it really caught a lot of traction and got in front of a lot of eyeballs that way. And this is the bill, proposed law that would, again, require student athletes to play sports based on their assigned gender at birth. You don't like this one bit. Tell me why.
Well, if we could, let's start with the governor's comments. He said that transgender participation would destroy women's athletics. Now, anytime you use the word destroy, you better make sure that you can back that up. What the story in the Tennessean that came out today indicated was that there was no evidence that there are trans athletes competing currently. Now, we're talking about a small number of students to begin with, and then a smaller number of them who would be interested in playing sports. How is a small number of people going to destroy anything? So I think we're dealing in the realm of hyperbole here. Ultimately, I think what the public policy of the state ought to be is provide a way forward, a path for everyone who wants to participate in school sports to be able to do so, because there are real benefits to that. There are physical health benefits, but there are also mental and emotional health benefits of participating in school sports. But this bill is basically a bad solution in search of a problem. The problem has not been documented, and we're not even really respecting or listening to the voices of transgender students themselves. And that's what's so troubling about this. Imagine you are a transgender middle school student or high school student, and you hear the governor of your state say that you and your peers are going to destroy women's athletics. That's very troubling.
You basically answered my first question, but I just want to dive into this a little bit more so our viewers also can hear this. Has this been an issue at the local level that you are aware of here in Tennessee?
All I can say is that the Tennessean found no incidents. We have not seen other media reports, and the folks bringing the bill, supporting the bill, have not mentioned any cases.
That's interesting. We already have one caller on the line. This is Open Line, so I want to get right to him. William is on the line. Hi, William.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Well, I've kind of got an issue with that.
Okay.
I guess I could kind of simplify it. All right, say we got donkeys racing. We got a donkey race. Would you feel comfortable putting a horse in a donkey race?
And this is thank you, William, for calling in. I'm going to hang up so you can listen to Chris's response here. And Chris, this is going to be the number one thing that people bring up, especially when we're talking about someone who is biologically born male, becomes a transgender female. and please excuse me and correct me if I'm not using the right words. Please correct me. People are going to say, but that person is just genetically stronger. How can it be a fair competition? That is going to be the main argument.
Well, first of all, comparisons to animals, we see this all too commonly happen whenever minorities are involved, the focus of a discussion by the majority community, and I think that's really unfortunate. Secondly, what I would say is that transgender students, like their peers, come in every height, weight, strength ability, athletic ability. There is a great variety among transgender kids. And there have been in other states instances of trans women and girls competing, and they don't always win. Now, let me give you what actually happens. What actually happens when you put these kind of bans in place would be an example in Texas. Mac Beggs, who was assigned female at birth, but is a transgender man, wrestled in the state of Texas. He wanted to wrestle against the other boys, but the state had a policy and he could not. So he had to wrestle against the girls. He won back-to-back state titles, depriving those girls of winning those championships. So this policy will actually hurt women's athletics.
Yeah, we often find folks who are focusing on how someone born genetically a male could hurt women's sports because they have more power, more muscle, more speed. But you flip that around and it makes sense. It can go the other way as well. Now Glenn Cassida has brought up the point that he said we're also protecting people who are born, as you use in your example, are born biologically female but are a trans male trying to compete in a male sport, how they could be hurt.
Well, I don't think Mac wanted to be that kind of protection. And this is paternalistic. Again, what's happening is people who have no intention of speaking to transgender youth or their families are making broad, punitive public policy affecting them. And the worst kind of public policy is always made when you don't consult those most affected by the legislation.
You were quoted in the Tennessean as saying that the governor needs to learn more about transgender people and engage directly with the community. To your knowledge, has this ever happened?
I'm not aware that it's happened. I mean, I don't know, everything that's happened in the governor's life. I do know that back in 2011, when the contractor non-discrimination ordinance was going through Metro Council, he wrote a letter to council members opposing that bill. So there is a bit of a history of animus against our community there. Between 2011 and this year, I don't know what engagement he's really had with our community.
What do you think he could learn if he engaged with transgenders? What would he learn?
Well, transgender people. He could learn what I think the governor of Utah has learned. I don't know whether you saw his comments, yes, but he said, when you meet with these kids, your heart changes. And I would hope that even if his views on public policy didn't immediately change, he would take a different orientation toward public policy, and he would be aware that his comments about a group destroying something are inflammatory, and the last thing they need, on top of the ordinary stresses and strains they have from trying to come out as a transgender youth.
Let's go back to the lines. We have Jamal on the line. Jamal, thank you for your call tonight. Go ahead. Jamal, the floor is yours.
I didn't hear you say my name.
Oh, go ahead.
How y'all doing tonight?
We're good.
Well, I really understand what he's saying about the word that he used that destroys, that does inflame the situation. But on just a strictly a sports aspect, you want to play the best athletes with equal athletes. You don't put LeBron James with female basketball players because he jumps like 13 feet over the goal. You don't put women on the football field because, genetically modified or whatever you want to do to them. Those are 300-pound men that run 5'2", 5'3". Physically, men and women are different. And sports is the drawing line. You have women who try to play into the PGA every year to play, against Tiger Woods, stuff like that, because politically correctly, everybody wants to say, hey, women can do this too. But if, say Tiger Woods he's aging out of men's sport, say he had a sex change and became a woman, he still would be more powerful than most of the women LPGA players. And that would ruin that division because he would outplay all of them, even as an older male who had a hormonal treatment. So let's not roll into the aspect of the deplorable and stuff like that. It's the sports thing that we're looking at, the competition level. It's not about hurting anyone's feelings or putting anybody. How about just like with Special Olympics, we set up a special thing for them to perform in. You can do the same thing with them because it's going to be an equal, women against women, men against men. But sports doesn't see sex. It sees the best athlete on the field.
Interesting.
Comparably.
Thank you, Janelle. Go ahead, Chris.
I hear the comment. I wish it were just about the sports, but the insulting language is one piece of evidence. And the fact that the proponents of this bill have not done anything about the real threats to women's sports that make me think really what's at work is discrimination and not trying to focus on the sports. If they were focused on the sports, they might explore policies like what the NCAA has done, what the Olympics have done to make sure there is a path for inclusion for transgender athletes. But that's not what's going on in Tennessee. What's going on in Tennessee is these inflammatory comments, lack of consultation with the trans community, and kind of a diversion from what the real threats to women's sports are. Let's think about what the real threats to women's athletics are. Not equal pay, not equal funding, not equal facilities. One could go on and on and on. These are the threats that I hear consistently from women who are interested in athletics, that there's just not that kind of encouragement, this ladder, this support that male athletes receive.
We have to take a quick commercial break, but so much to talk about. And I hope that we can talk about the provisions that the NCAA and the Olympics, the Olympic Committee has put into place. I think that will help people understand this issue a little bit better. All of that after this commercial break. And Wendell, I know you're on the line too. We will get to your call first. Stay with us.